Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 1 of this year's US Chess Championship. It is Andy Woodward versus Levon Aronian. I don't know if you guys remember, the two of them played in the FIDE Grand Swiss not so long ago, and Andy defeated Levon in round 9 of the FIDE Grand Swiss, which didn't really cripple Levon's chances all that much, as he wasn't doing all that great in the tournament, but still. Pretty tough blow, and he's only 15 years old. We've already mentioned that in the previous video, and he got his grandmaster title in 2022. And if you're wondering, okay, but what is he doing here, playing the U.S. Chess Championship? Isn't he a bit too low rated? Well, no, he actually won the U.S. Chess Championship for juniors, and then he was seeded directly into the U.S. Chess Championship 2025. So that is how Andy got himself here, and opponent for round 1, none other than Levon Aronian. Let's check it out. Andy with white opens with pawn to d4. We have pawn to d5, pawn to c4, c6. Levon goes for the Slav defense. Knight f3, we have knight to f6, and pawn to e3. Bishop g4. The so-called pin defense, knight to c3 and pawn to e6. We have pawn to h3, bishop h5, and queen to b3, followed by queen to b6. So this has been played many times. Nothing new here. Knight e5, we have knight f to d7, knight to d3, and bishop to g6, putting pressure on the knight. And usually queen to d1 is played here, sometimes pawn to h4 to prepare pawn to h5. But here we have bishop to d2 by Andy, and it is now, as of move 10, that we have a completely new game. And it's hard to say that this is a preparation from Andy or anything, because he already burned 20 minutes on the clock, and Levon spent maybe 4 minutes. But okay, also could very well be. We have bishop to e7, Levon continues development, rook to c1, and queen captures on b3. We have a captures and knight to a6. And a lot of you have been asking how is Levon to qualify for the candidates. Well, it's not going to be easy. It can either be via the 2025 FIDE circuit or through the World Cup. So World Cup starts this month. I think it's 30 or 31st of this month. And should he do really well, he could qualify through that. He could also qualify via rating, but it is, somewhat unlikely that he will overtake Hikaru. He would need to win some 100 rating points. But okay, we have knight to a6, knight to f4, putting pressure on the bishop, and knight to b4. Just an annoying square to put your knight on. You're gonna cement it with pawn to a5, and it's gonna be very nicely placed there. And I've seen a lot of beginners make the mistake of going knight captures on d5 in similar positions to expose the knight, but then the knight captures. Even though you have a knight, you should also have in mind that your opponent has a knight. Bishop to e2, and now pawn to a5. And okay, this is a equal position. If you check the engine will say, okay, you can play 5 different moves here, and all of them are 0.00. So it's a very stale position, but what comes next really shows why Levon is the kind of player that he is. We have castles, knight captures on g6, and Levon captures the bishop because now that you've castled, you definitely want to capture it as... Andy should capture it, as Levon could go bishop to f5 on the next move. And then, yes, you will be able to kick it away with g4, but then you also have to weaken your king. Captures right away. We have h captures and rook to a1, just preventing any pawn to a4 ideas in the future, and making a a5 pawn a target. We have knight to c2 by Levon, rook a to b1, and knight back to b4. And now Andy does not repeat with rook to a1, even though I don't think anyone would actually repeat here, even Levon, if Andy just went back with rook to a1. Levon goes rook f to c1, and now we have rook f to d8. And this is the beautiful move that really got me interested in this game. How do you make such a move? Well, obviously the d file can be opened by playing d captures on c4. But what you really have to take into consideration is the undefended bishop on d2. And it sounds ludicrous, even considering that, because it's so far deep into white's camp. But yes, it is undefended. Remember that game Mikhail Tal played with black against Gorgonidze, where, it seemed like there's, what's Tal doing, and then the rook was undefended. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's never play h3 against Mikhail Tal. I think the title is on my channel. But yeah, I mean, wow. And it's very, very good to find moves this way. You find a piece that is undefended, or a pawn, or something that you can use to make a tactic, and then you just employ it. So rook to d8, we have rook to a1, and now look at this: d captures, b captures, and knight to c5. It's not much, but it's something. As you are threatening knight to b3 to fork the rooks, and also if captures, then you've already doubled white's pawns, and your rook is on a beautiful, beautiful second rank. So in Levon's hands, this would be the same as winning. So bishop to d1, stopping knight b3, and now pawn to e5. Again, not much to do with the situation in the center, as you cannot allow rook captures on d2. So knight e2, we have e captures, and knight to e6. We have bishop to c3. You have to organize some sort of a defense here to prevent the loss of the d4 pawn. Bishop to g5, attacking the rook. Rook c to b1, and bishop back to f6. And okay, 3 pieces attacking d4 now. You have to advance it. Pawn to d5. Okay, we have captures. Bishop captures on b4, removing one of the defenders of the d pawn. A captures, rook captures on a8, rook captures, and now c captures on d5, attacking the knight. Knight to c5. We have knight to c1, preparing knight to b3, and now king to f8. And it's hard to say what Andy should play here. Even with knight b3, maybe it was even intended. Levon would avoid the trade, go knight to a4. And it's just not easy. The engine says yes, d6 is enough to hold the position, but we are not engines. Andy played bishop to e2. Levon played rook to d8. Another rook to d8 move that is really problematic for Andy. We have bishop to c4, and now look at this, pawn to b5. And yeah, you do not want to trade the double b pawn for the d pawn. I mean, you do if you're black, but as white, you really don't want to capture it. However, you should. It's the only move that keeps you in the game. Andy decided to keep the d5 pawn. He played bishop to a2, and he committed sort of a self-zugzwang. He put himself in a position where he's just without a move. And Levon capitalized on it immediately. Played rook to a8, and there's no move that you can make. As the knight cannot move, the bishop would be lost. If the knight doesn't move, the rook doesn't move. I mean, you could try some king moves. It really doesn't do all that much. You could play bishop c4. Maybe to try and not bishop to c4. You could play bishop to b3. It seems like, okay, the b3 square is guarded by the knight, but okay, you still can't move the knight because it has to guard the bishop on b3. So what you could do is maybe start activating the king with king f1, but then knight e4, threatening the fork with knight to d2. And if king e2, then you just go rook e8, and there's no good defense here. Whatever you do, you either lose the f2 pawn, or you go back, and then knight d2 check again, forks the king, and the rook is just dead lost. So after rook a8, pawn to d6 seems like a move that, okay, you really don't want to play, but you are preventing the king from going to e7, and maybe forcing the rook away from the a file. And okay, we have rook to a6, putting pressure on the pawn. Knight to b3. Now giving up the bishop to claim the knight on c5, but knight to e4. Just getting the knight out of harm's way and putting more pressure on that d6 pawn. We have rook to c1, and now do you capture the free bishop or not? That is also an interesting point, but of course you do not, as this is checkmate. That's why the pawn was pushed to d6. Once you block, it's mate in 1. So after rook to c1, we have knight captures on d6. Levon just grabs the pawn, and now his position is just winning. We have bishop to b1, knight to c4, and now knight to c5, attacking the rook, rook a1, knight back to b3, attacking the rook, and the rook back to a7. We have rook to d1, and bishop captures on b2. Levon grabs another pawn, and now he's up 2 pawns, one really, because they are doubled, and one of them will probably be lost, but still, it is enough. Rook to d5, and now even king e7, saying you cannot capture it. If you capture it, then knight a3 attacks the rook and bishop, and you lose. So king e7, king f1, we have rook to a3, attacking the bishop, bishop to c2, and the bishop to c3. We have bishop to d1, knight to d6, and knight to c5. We have rook to a1, attacking the bishop, and king to e2, unpinning. Pawn to f5, pawn to g4, we have bishop to f6, and bishop to b3. And and notice how Andy is in a really, really bad position, but he's playing a remarkable game. And especially after you see what happens next. Rook to b1, we have rook to d1, offering a rook trade, and rook to b2 check. Levon declines, we have rook to d2, and now he captures. Rook captures, king captures, knight to c4 check, king d1, and now knight to a5. Going after the bishop, king c2, and now king to d6, chasing away the knight, knight d3, and finally knight captures on b3. Levon goes into a bishop versus knight endgame where he's just up material. King captures with king to d5, and now you cannot capture on b4. This is also, I mean, you've defended for so long, you finally have a chance to grab a pawn, but then king e4, and you just lose all of your pawns and the game. So after king d5, knight f4 check with king to e4, and now knight captures on g6, and 58 moves have been played, but still it's not enough if you don't find the next move. It's the only move that wins the game. Feel free to pause the video and win the game while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on being a true master of the endgame. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is pawn to f4, the only move that wins the game. And to give you a quick reason, let's say you trade captures, king f3. Yes, you'll win a pawn, but you're going to lose both of the pawns on the queen side. Let's say captures on g4, captures here, king f3, king c4, and now after captures, knight to f4, and the only thing white needs to do is to give up the knight for the pawn, and that's it. You will have a draw by insufficient material. So after knight g6, pawn to f4. Levon finds it, of course. I mean, he has 50 minutes on the clock. h4, bishop to d4, the pawn is lost. There's no way to defend it. h5, bishop captures g5, and now pawn to f3. h6, captures, and he also has a pass pawn, but Levon already has a knight on g6 defending it. Even if you... sorry, not a knight defending it, but the knight is defending the queening square. That is what I meant, but it's very easy for Levon to stop the pawn. So that's exactly what Levon played. He played bishop to d4, and he was in this position on move 63 that Andy Woodward resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. I always find it distasteful to resign on move 63. You know, you're already on 63. You might as well do it, make it a 64. But okay, I guess it's not for everyone. And the point is, once you play h7, f2, that's it. You will win the bishop, but of course the f-pawn queens, and you can just resign. You have a queen versus a knight, easily winning for black. So yeah, very nicely done by Levon, not just winning round 1 of the US Chess Championship, but also exacting his revenge for his loss to Andy Woodward in the FIDE Grand Swiss. Someone said that they would like to see the standings, but I mean, it's round 1. We're going to check out the standings after round 3, as we usually do on this channel. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. A big congratulations to Levon on his first victory in the US Chess Championships. I would like to thank Robert Aratun, Rokao, John Anderson, Ulrich Tini, and Gerard St. Pierre for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world, covering the European Team Championship and the US Chess Championship, and you know, whatever interesting is going on. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.